The jungle's whisper. Syrah ran as fast as her legs could carry her. Her skin was scratched, her dress was torn, her small feet bled from the sharp rocks and thorns. But she didn't stop. Behind her, shadows moved. Hunters, ruthless ones, they wanted her because she was different. Her blood could heal. Her race was almost gone and she was one of the last. The hunters didn't care. To them she was just something to sell. The forest in front of her was dark and thick. The trees looked alive, big leaves moved without wind. Strange vines hung like snakes, swinging slowly even though the air was still. Everyone said not to go into the jungle of Drava. It was cursed, dangerous, alive. But Syrah had no choice. Her legs shook, her heart raced. She crossed the old stones and stepped into the forbidden place. The moment her foot touched the mossy ground, it felt cold and wet. But she kept walking, deeper and deeper. Her breath came in fast gasps. Then, she slipped. A vine twisted around her ankle. She screamed and tried to pull back, but more vines shot out. One grabbed her wrist. Another coiled around her waist. "No. Please," she cried out, kicking and twisting. The vines were not like normal plants. They moved with purpose. They held her tight like they wanted to pull her into the ground. She screamed again, louder. But no one answered. Miles away, a human named Jake Connors was studying life signs on his scanner. He had landed his ship near the jungle edge to study rare plants. He was calm, focused, and alone. He liked it that way. Suddenly his scanner blinked. A faint signal. Very weak. It was coming from inside the jungle. "That's strange," Jake muttered. "Could be a bird. Or maybe an injured animal." He adjusted the scanner. The signal pulsed again. "No. This is different," he said, frowning. He picked up his bag and weapon. Time to check it out. Jake walked carefully into the forest. It got darker with each step. The trees blocked the light. The ground was soft and sticky. Strange sounds echoed around him. Clicks, whispers, rustling. Then, he heard something. A cry. A voice. Faint, but real. "Help. Someone. Help me." Jake froze. He wasn't sure if it was a trick. Many things in this galaxy could mimic sound, but then he heard it again. "Please. I can't move." Jake moved toward the voice. Slowly. Carefully. His boots sank into moss. He saw strange vines moving in the trees above, like snakes waiting to drop. Then he saw her, an alien girl trapped in thick green vines. Her arms were pulled above her. Her legs were bound. She was barely moving. Her eyes were wide with fear. Jake raised his weapon, unsure. The vines hissed, pulling the girl tighter. She saw him. A human. Hope lit up in her tearful eyes. "Please," she whispered. "Don't leave me." Jake didn't move. His mind was racing. It could be a trap. But what if it wasn't? He looked at the vines. They weren't just holding her, they were feeding off her, tiny thorns biting her skin. Jake made his choice. He took a step forward. "Hold on," he shouted. "I'm going to help you." The vines reacted. They sensed him. Some dropped from the trees, reaching for him. Jake ducked and rolled. He slashed one vine with his laser blade. It shrieked and curled back. He ran to the girl, slicing the vine on her leg. More vines came. Jake fought them off, but one wrapped around his arm. It squeezed hard. He growled and cut it away. "Stay with me," he shouted to the girl. "Don't close your eyes." He kept cutting, one by one. Blood from small cuts ran down his face, but he didn't stop. Finally, the last vine around her chest loosened. She fell forward into his arms. She was cold, weak, but still breathing. Jake looked around. The vines were pulling back for now. He lifted the girl carefully. "Let's get you out of here." Behind him, the forest whispered. The vines watched. But for now, they let him go. And deep inside the jungle, something ancient and powerful stirred. because for the first time in many years, a human had entered the whispering jungle and lived. Jake carried the alien girl through the thick forest, her fragile body limp in his arms. Her purple skin was cold. Small wounds covered her arms where the vines had pierced her. She was breathing, but barely. He looked down at her face. She was young, maybe 16 in human years. Her silver hair stuck to her face, wet with sweat and dirt. Her eyes remained closed, but her lips moved slightly. He needed shelter. Fast. Jake scanned the area. The deeper parts of the jungle were filled with movement, vines shifting in the treetops, hidden creatures watching from behind glowing plants. He spotted a narrow path between two thick roots. It led toward a group of stones. Ruins, maybe. Ancient, but solid. Better than nothing, he muttered. He stepped over tangled roots, careful not to trip, and ducked under hanging vines. Each step felt heavier. The jungle didn't like him here. He could feel it in the air, the way the leaves moved without wind. Finally, he reached the ruins. There, between two fallen stone blocks, he found a small, dry space. He gently laid the girl down and checked her pulse, still weak. From his bag, he pulled out a small water bottle and touched it to her lips. At first, she didn't respond, but then, her mouth opened slightly. She drank a little. Jake smiled. "That's it. Stay with me." She coughed. Her eyes opened halfway. She looked confused, scared, but alive. Who are you?" she whispered. "I'm Jake," he said softly. "Human. I found you in the vines." Her eyes darted around. "Where are they?" "The vines. The forest. It's alive." "I know," he nodded. "You're safe for now." She tried to sit up but winced. "Don't leave me." "I won't," Jake said firmly. "What's your name?" "Sirah," she breathed. "Okay, Sirah, just rest. I'll keep watch." But Jake couldn't rest. The jungle outside the stone shelter didn't stay quiet. The sounds of slithering vines and strange clicks returned. Something was moving in the trees, circling, watching. Jake stood guard with his plasma blade ready. The scanner in his pocket buzzed faintly. He pulled it out. It showed heat signatures, fast, cold-blooded, not human, not friendly. He narrowed his eyes. "Great. We're not alone." Then Sirah spoke again. "They're coming." Jake turned. "Who's coming?" She struggled to speak. "The hunters. They want me. They'll track me here. They always do." Jake's face turned grim. "Then we need to move before they find us." Sirah shook her head. I can't run." He looked at her wounded legs. The vines had cut deep. She wouldn't make it far. Jake looked up at the trees. They were alive, yes, but they could also hide them. If used right, maybe the jungle could protect them. An idea formed. "I'm going to make something," he said. "You rest." He left her there and walked into the jungle again, but this time carefully. He cut vines, not the living ones that attacked, but the dry ones. He gathered thick leaves and sticky tree sap. He worked fast. When he returned, he built a small camo cover using vines and leaves over the stone shelter. From the outside, it now looked like part of the jungle. "Let them try and find us now," he muttered. Sirah watched him. Her breathing was steadier. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Jake paused. "Because I heard you cry for help." "No, one else did." Sirah looked away. "Many heard, no one cared." Jake sat beside her. "Well, I do." She blinked at him. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but she wiped them quickly. "I thought I would die in that forest," she whispered. "You almost did." Sirah was silent for a moment. Then she said, "They want me because of my blood. It heals. My people are gone. I'm alone." Jake looked at her gently. "You're not alone anymore." Outside, the jungle rustled louder. Something heavy stepped on dry branches. Jake raised his blade again. Sirah's voice dropped to a whisper. They found us. Jake peeked through a hole in the vines. He saw them. 3 tall figures, wearing black armor, scanning the area. One of them pointed toward the ruins. "Scan says life signs here," a deep voice growled. Jake held his breath. Sierra covered her mouth with a shaking hand. The hunter stepped forward, right past the hidden shelter. He stopped. Then he turned and walked away. The jungle whispered again. A long vine, almost invisible in the dark, wrapped around the hunter's leg. He screamed as it yanked him into the trees. The other 2 ran back, firing at the vines. But it was too late. Jake watched silently. The jungle had made its choice. It would protect them, for now. The jungle was silent again. But it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that made the skin crawl. Jake stayed low, gripping his plasma blade tight. Sarah sat beside him, leaning against the cold stone, her breathing shaky. "They'll come back," she whispered. "Hunters never give up." Jake nodded. "I know, that's why we're moving. Now." Sarah shook her head. "I told you I can't walk." Jake looked down at her wounds. Her legs were still raw from the vines. Her ankle was swelling. She couldn't stand, let alone run. "I'm not leaving you here," Jake said firmly. "So, we'll find another way." He peeked through the leaf cover. The jungle shifted again. The vines weren't sleeping anymore. They were waking up. Hungry. The air was warm and sticky, and Jake could feel something watching him. He stepped out slowly, testing the ground. One wrong move, and the jungle would turn on him too. With his free hand, he reached into his bag and took out a long wire with a light on the end. He used it to scan the air. Some vines had motion sensors, others reacted to heat. "All right," Jake muttered. "Think like a machine. Move like a shadow." He stepped forward, slowly, carefully. Behind him, Sierra pulled herself forward, trying to help. She dragged herself using her arms. Her body ached with every inch, but she was determined not to be useless. Suddenly, a vine dropped from above. It lashed toward her. Jake turned in time. His blade swung fast, zerp, cutting the vine mid-air. It flopped to the ground, hissing like a snake. Sierra gasped. "They're awake." Jake pulled her close. "Stay behind me. No sudden moves." The vines began to twitch. Some slithered from the ground. Others coiled high above. The entire forest began to breathe as one living thing. Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward, clearing a path with his blade. He didn't slash unless he had to. Every cut made the vines angrier. He could feel the ground tremble under his boots. Suddenly, one vine wrapped around his leg and yanked. Jake fell hard, his blade flying from his hand. Sierra screamed, "Jake!" The vines moved fast, twisting up his arm, his chest around his neck. He struggled, choking. "Get the blade," he gasped. Sierra saw it, lying in the grass just a few feet away. She crawled toward it, each movement painful. A vine snapped at her leg, but she rolled and dodged it. Her fingers stretched. She grabbed the blade. "Now!" Jake coughed, vines tightening around his throat. Sierra turned it on and slashed blindly. The energy blade burned through the vines with a crackle. One wrapped around her wrist, cutting her skin. She screamed, but didn't stop. She kept cutting. Jake dropped to the ground, coughing hard. The vines recoiled. He looked at her, bloody, shaking, but standing on one knee with the blade in hand. You saved me," he said, stunned. "I couldn't let you die." "She," whispered. Jake stood and took the blade from her. "Then let's both live." They moved again, deeper into the jungle. Jake carried Sierra part of the way. The vines followed but didn't attack. Not yet. It was like they were watching, waiting. Then they found it. A clearing. In the center stood a massive tree, unlike the others. Its trunk glowed faintly, its roots twisted in strange symbols. It was ancient and powerful. "What is that?" Sierra whispered. Jake stared. "I don't know, but I think this is the heart of the jungle." They stepped closer. The vines stopped moving. Everything was still. Jake touched the tree. It felt warm, alive. A pulse beat under the bark, like a slow heartbeat. He felt dizzy for a moment, then clear. It's connected to everything, he said. The vines, the ground, even the air. Syrah reached out too. I feel it, like it's speaking. Jake nodded. I think this tree controls the jungle. A sudden thought hit him. What if we're not supposed to fight it? Jake said. What if it protects what it trusts? Syrah closed her eyes. Then maybe it saved me from the hunters. Jake looked around. Maybe it's testing us. Maybe if we show we're not threats. He dropped his blade on the ground. The vines nearby froze. Syrah did the same. She let go of the stick she'd been holding for balance. A soft breeze moved through the clearing. The vines lowered. Jake smiled. We passed. Syrah looked up at the glowing tree. Maybe we're not enemies anymore. Jake turned to her. Now we rest. Then we figure out how to survive this place and get out alive. The jungle didn't speak, but for the first time it didn't fight either, and that was a start. The sun began to sink behind the thick canopy, casting long golden shadows across the forest floor. Jake knew they couldn't stay in the clearing near the glowing tree for long. The jungle may have spared them for now, but it was still wild, and hunters could still be on their trail. We need to move again, Jake said gently. Syrah blinked, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. But where? There's a ridge west of here, he answered. My scans showed a hollow there earlier. It could be a cave. Syrah tried to stand, but winced in pain. Her legs still weren't strong. Jake knelt beside her. I'll carry you. No, she said, trying to sound brave. I'll walk. You'll fall. He didn't wait. He scooped her up in his arms again. She let out a soft breath, but didn't argue. They moved carefully through the forest. The vines still twitched above them, curious but not attacking. Jake noticed how they gently parted as he walked through, as if the jungle itself had changed its mind about them. Strange, he whispered. It's like it's guiding us. Syrah rested her head against his shoulder. Maybe it is. Maybe the jungle thinks you're one of the good ones, Jake smiled slightly. That would be a first. It took an hour of quiet walking before they reached the stone ridge. Moss covered the rocks and glowing insects danced in the air like floating stars. The cave entrance was hidden behind thick ferns. If you didn't know it was there, you'd walk right past it. Jake pushed the ferns aside and stepped into the cool dark. The cave opened into a wide chamber, dry and silent. Crystals sparkled faintly on the walls, reflecting their soft light. Jake set Syrah down gently. This will do. She leaned against a rock and looked around. It's beautiful. Safe, too, he said, checking the corners. No signs of animals, no vines in here, just us. For the first time since they met, Jake took a deep breath and let it out slowly. We made it, he said. But Syrah wasn't smiling. Her hands were shaking. Jake knelt in front of her. What's wrong? She looked at him with tearful eyes. I thought I was going to die. I thought I would be food for the vines, or worse, untaken back by them. Jake's expression softened. You're safe now. She looked down. Why did you help me? You didn't even know me. He shrugged. Maybe because nobody else did, and because I couldn't ignore you. Her voice cracked. Others saw me before, heard me cry. They turned away. Well, Jake said gently, I don't turn away. He opened his small bag and pulled out a heating patch and protein rations. He handed her a soft energy bar. It's not a royal meal, but it'll fill you up. Syrah took a bite and chewed slowly. Tastes like metal and sadness, she muttered, and Jake laughed. After eating, Jake tended to her wounds again, applying a cooling salve. Syrah watched him closely, her eyes soft. You treat me like I matter, she said, even though I'm not human. You're alive, Jake replied. That's what matters. She hesitated, then asked, Will you leave me once I'm healed? Jake paused, thinking. Do you want me to? No, she said quickly. Then quieter. I feel safe with you. He gave her a small smile. Then I'll stay. Night fell completely outside the cave. Crickets and glowing beetles buzzed softly. Jake set up a motion detector at the cave entrance. If the hunters, or vines, came near, it would beep. Syrah pulled a thin blanket around her and leaned against the wall. Jake? She asked. Yeah? I used to dream of a world where I wasn't hunted, where I could sleep without fear. I never thought I'd find it in a jungle like this, beside a human. He sat near her. Sometimes safety comes from the places you least expect. She nodded. You're strange, but I like that. They both smiled. The silence in the cave wasn't scary anymore. It felt warm, still, trusting. Syrah yawned, her eyes closed slowly. Jake watched her drift off, then turned his eyes to the cave entrance. He didn't know what would happen tomorrow. The hunters might return, the jungle might turn again, but for tonight she was safe. And so was he, and that was enough. The jungle outside was quiet, too quiet. Jake didn't sleep. He sat near the entrance of the cave, watching the glowing scanner in his hand. The screen pulsed softly, showing no life signs nearby, yet, but his instincts told him something had changed. Behind him, Syrah stirred in her sleep, mumbling softly. He turned to check on her. She was still resting, her breathing steady. She looked peaceful now. Less afraid, Jake allowed himself a small smile. Then, beep. His scanner blinked red. Jake's eyes sharpened. No. 3 fast-moving signals. Heat signatures. Humanoid. Closing in from the east. The hunters had returned. Jake moved quickly and silently. He placed a soft hand on Syrah's shoulder. Wake up, he whispered. We've got company. Her eyes opened immediately, sharp with fear. Them? Jake nodded. 3 of them, coming fast. Syrah tried to sit up, wincing from the pain in her legs. Jake helped her. She looked toward the mouth of the cave. They'll find us, won't they? Only if we let them, Jake said. He pulled out a small metal box from his pack, a portable field jammer. This will scramble their trackers for a few minutes, not long. She watched him set it up. What's the plan? Jake looked out into the jungle. We split. I'll draw them away. You stay hidden here. No, she said quickly. They'll kill you. Better me than both of us, Jake replied, trying to keep his voice calm. Syrah grabbed his wrist. They don't just kill. They take. They torture. Please don't go alone. Jake paused, then looked around the cave. His eyes stopped on a narrow tunnel leading deeper into darkness. I have another idea. 10 minutes later, the cave was empty, at least to anyone looking in from the outside. The hunters arrived with slow, careful steps. They wore dark armor with glowing visors, scanning every inch of the cave mouth. One of them raised a hand, signaling silence. Inside, Jake and Syrah crouched low in the tight side tunnel. It smelled of damp stone and old roots. Jake had covered their main trail with loose moss and cooled their body heat with a spray from his med pack. The hunters stepped inside the cave. Their boots echoed on stone. One pointed to the faint remains of a fire. Another raised a scanner. 2 life signs, the lead hunter growled. Close. They started moving deeper in. Jake leaned, close to Syrah's ear. When I say run, run west, follow the marked trees, there's a ravine. Hide on the far side. She shook her head. You'll be caught. Maybe, he whispered. But you won't. Syrah bit her lip. Don't die, human. Jake gave a small smile. Not planning on it. As the hunters moved deeper into the main chamber, Jake tossed a small metal orb toward the far wall. Boom! A blinding flash erupted, followed by thick white smoke. The hunters shouted in surprise. Jake grabbed Syrah's hand. Run! They burst out of the side tunnel, coughing from the smoke. Jake guided Sirah quickly toward the back exit of the cave, one he'd spotted earlier during their rest. It was hidden behind a thick wall of vines. "Here!" he shouted, slashing the vines with his blade. They stumbled into open jungle just as the smoke cleared behind them. Shouts echoed through the trees. "They're running!" Jake kept pulling Sirah, heart pounding. She tried to run, but her legs were weak. She stumbled once, twice, but Jake caught her every time. They didn't stop until they reached the ravine. Jake pointed. "Down there!" It was steep, but covered in thick brush, perfect for hiding. They slid down together, leaves slapping, their faces mud staining their clothes. At the bottom, Sirah crawled into a hollow under a fallen log. Jake joined her seconds later. Above them, the hunters arrived but didn't look down. They kept running west, shouting commands into their headsets. "They went north," one yelled. Jake and Sirah didn't move. They barely breathed. Only after 10 full minutes passed did Jake exhale. "They're gone, for now." Sirah lay against him, shaking. "They were so close." Jake nodded. "Too close." He took out the jammer again. "This saved us, but they'll return." Sirah looked up at him. "What do we do now?" Jake looked at the jungle around them. "We make them believe we're ghosts. We don't fight like warriors. We survive, like shadows." He helped her sit up. "But first we need shelter. A real one this time." Sirah said softly. "There's a place my people once used. A sacred garden, deep inside the jungle. They won't follow us there." Jake raised an eyebrow. "A sacred garden?" She nodded. "The vines protect it." Jake stood, offering her his hand. "Then let's go. We've made it this far. Let's see how far this jungle will carry us." And with that, the two fugitives, one hunted for her blood, the other for his heart, vanished once more into the green shadows of a living, watching forest. Jake pushed a low-hanging branch aside as he led Sirah deeper into the jungle. The air was thick with moisture and the leaves were heavy with dew. The trees whispered with life, vines gently swaying even though there was no breeze. Everything felt alive, watching. Sirah leaned against him for support. Her legs were healing but still weak. "We're getting close," she said softly. "The sacred garden is just past the fire root trees." Jake glanced around. "Fire root trees?" She pointed. "There." He saw them now, tall, twisting trees with glowing red bark, warm to the touch. Their roots pulsed faintly beneath the soil, like veins under skin. The air around them shimmered with heat. Sirah explained. "My ancestors believed these trees were born from lightning. They mark the entrance to the sacred part of the jungle. Even the vines obey the rules there." Jake raised an eyebrow. "So we're walking into a holy place protected by plants that nearly ate you alive?" She nodded. "Yes." Jake chuckled. "Perfect." As they stepped past the fire root trees, something changed. The jungle grew quieter. No animal sounds. No wind. The vines here were thick, but they didn't move aggressively. Instead, they curled upward like gates, parting just enough to let the two pass. Jake whispered, "This place, it knows you." Sirah nodded. "It remembers my people." Then, behind them, a boom. Jake turned. Black smoke curled into the sky. Flames lit up the far trees. "The hunters," he muttered. "They set the jungle on fire." Sirah's face turned pale. "They'll burn everything, just to catch us." Jake looked up. Fire was fast, wild, and the vines, once their guardians, might not survive it. "We have to move now," he said. "If the fire reaches this place, we're trapped." Sirah grabbed his arm. "There's a stone circle in the garden. Old ruins, hidden under the canopy. If we make it there, the jungle may protect us again." Jake nodded. "Lead the way." They rushed through winding paths, the air growing hotter with every step. Glowing plants pulsed underfoot. Vines shivered overhead. Suddenly, crack. A burning branch fell from above, landing in front of them. Jake jumped forward and kicked it aside. Smoke stung his eyes. "Faster!" he shouted. Syrah limped forward, breath ragged. "I can't. I'm slowing you down." Jake didn't stop. He wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her close. "We finished this together." Flames roared behind them now. Trees cracked, leaves curled and died. The jungle screamed. Then, they broke into a wide clearing. Massive stone pillars stood in a perfect circle, covered in glowing moss. In the center stood a small pedestal with a carved handprint. The air here was cooler, almost sacred. Syrah pointed. "Put your hand on it." Jake hesitated. "What?" "Trust me." He ran to the pedestal and slammed his hand down. The ground rumbled. The vines surrounding the clearing twitched, then shot upward like spears, forming a thick dome over the entire garden. The flames reached the edges, but the living barrier held strong. Inside, the fire's roar faded. They were safe. For now. Jake fell to his knees, panting. That was too close. Syrah dropped beside him. Her body shook, but she was smiling. "The jungle accepted you." He looked at her. "Why me?" "You didn't come to take or destroy," she said softly. "You listened. You protected. The forest knows." Jake looked around. The stone circle was quiet. Warm light shone down through the cracks in the vine dome. The jungle was alive, but not angry. It was calm, almost proud. Then, movement, a single vine lowered from the ceiling. At its tip was a glowing seed resting gently in a leaf cradle. Syrah gasped. "That's a gift." Jake raised an eyebrow. "A gift?" She nodded. "A life seed. It means the jungle wants to remember you, wants you to be part of it." Jake stood and approached the vine. He held out his hand. The seed dropped into his palm. It was warm, alive. He didn't know what it meant yet, but it felt important. "I don't think this is over," Jake said. "They'll keep hunting you." Syrah looked him in the eyes. "Then I'll keep running. With you." He smiled, tired but hopeful. "Then let's keep surviving." Outside the vine shield, the fire raged, but it could not enter. And deep in the heart of the jungle, the vines had chosen their side. Dawn broke slowly over the jungle, golden light filtering through the thick vine dome above. The fire had died during the night. Smoke still rose from the charred outer trees, but the sacred garden remained untouched, alive. Inside the vine shield, Jake sat with his back against a mossy stone pillar, holding the glowing life seed in his hands. It pulsed gently with warmth, like a tiny heartbeat. Across from him, Syrah slept peacefully for the first time in days, her face no longer tense with fear. Jake looked at her and smiled faintly. She had lost her people, her home and nearly her life, but still she had fought. And through it all she'd trusted him, a stranger, a human. And now the jungle itself had chosen to protect them both. Syrah stirred and opened her eyes slowly. "It's morning?" Jake nodded. "Yeah, the fire's gone, we're still here." She sat up and glanced around the circle. "The garden still breathes." Jake held up the seed. "This thing, what am I supposed to do with it?" Syrah crawled over and gently touched his hand. "You keep it. As long as you carry it, the jungle will know you. It will recognize your scent, your voice, your heart." Jake chuckled. "So I've got a forest's blessing now," Syrah smiled. "More than that, you're bonded to it, to us." Jake looked at her. "To you?" Her cheeks flushed a pale violet. "If you want." He didn't answer right away. He just nodded slowly, eyes steady. "Yeah, I think I do." Later that day, they emerged from the garden. The vine dome silently opened for them, the vines retreating like obedient guards. The damage outside was worse than Jake imagined. Trees were blackened, the earth still steaming in places. The hunters had been thorough in their destruction, but something else stood out, a trail of armored bodies. Jake and Syrah moved carefully past them. The hunters had returned in the night. They had tried again, and the jungle had killed them. Thick vines wrapped around some of the bodies. Others lay pierced by sharp branches. It hadn't been a fight. It had been judgment. Syrah lowered her head in respect. They were warned, but they didn't listen. Jake sighed. Now we have no idea who else might come. She looked at him. Then we go where no one dares follow. 3 days passed. They traveled deeper than anyone ever had, guided by the jungle itself. Vines moved aside. Paths opened. Strange glowing birds flew overhead, chirping in curiosity. Jake noticed how nothing attacked them anymore. Not beasts, not plants. It was as if the entire forest had accepted them. At night, the jungle kept them, warm. At day, it shaded them. Once, when Jake fell and scraped his arm, a plant nearby burst open and released a soothing mist that healed his cut within minutes. "I don't think we're guests anymore," Jake whispered one night. Syrah smiled. "No, we're part of it now." On the 5th morning, they found it. A village, ancient, hidden in thick roots and vines. Stone homes half buried but still standing. A pool of crystal water sat in the center, undisturbed for centuries. Syrah stood silently, tears in her eyes. "This was my people's final refuge before the hunters came, before we scattered." Jake looked around. "Looks like it's still waiting." She nodded. "Then let's give it life again." Days turned to weeks. Jake used tools from his survival kit to rebuild the roofs. Syrah cleaned out the wells and replanted food-bearing plants that had overgrown. The jungle helped in strange ways, vines weaving into walls, flowers blooming where they needed light, trees giving fruit just when they were hungry. At night, they would sit under the stars, the life seed glowing gently between them. Jake had never imagined this. A forest. A bond. A girl with silver hair who once cried for help and now laughed beside him. She had stopped calling him human. Now she simply called him Jake. And he no longer saw her as alien. Now she was family, a partner, a miracle in a place most would never dare enter. One evening, as fireflies lit up the old village, Syrah walked up to Jake, holding something in her hands. A small wooden carving of the tree that had saved them. She placed it in his hands. "This is for you, so you never forget the jungle, or me." Jake held it tightly. "I could never forget either." She looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly. "What will we do if more hunters come?" Jake smiled. "Then we show them what happens when you mess with the jungle's chosen." Syrah laughed. "And what if peace finally comes?" Jake stepped closer, placing a hand over her heart. "Then we build something better, together." The vines above rustled softly, almost like an approving sigh, and in the heart of the living forest, 2 souls, one human, one alien, found not just safety, but home together forever.